We are going to go live now to Newmarket, the RCMP providing an update on the arrest of a father and son.
National Security Enforcement Team, who we'll call INSET. The GTA INSET is made up of the representatives, many of whom you see before you today. The RCMP, Toronto Police, CBSA, the Ontario Provincial Police, York Regional Police, Peel Regional Police Service, and the Durham Regional Police, with assistance that we get from the Ministry of the Attorney General of Canada, and of Ontario, and the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. INSET investigates threats to national security, including criminal extremism and terrorism. These investigations carried out by INSET look into the most serious threats to Canada's safety and security. On July 28, 2024, GTA INSET arrested a father and son at a hotel in Richmond Hill who were in the advanced stages of planning a serious, violent attack in Toronto. We became aware of this in early July. A publication ban is currently in place in order to protect the integrity of the complex investigation. However, I will speak to the details that I can provide at this time. With the consent of the Attorney General of Canada, and where appropriate, the Attorney General of Ontario, two individuals stand charged with a number of criminal code terrorism offences. Ahmed El Didi, age 62, and Mustafa El Didi, age 26, face charges for their alleged terrorist activities, including participation in the activities of a terrorist group, ISIS or Daesh, contrary to Section 8318 of the Criminal Code, facilitating a terrorist activity, contrary to Section 8319 of the Criminal Code, conspiracy to commit murder, contrary to Section 465 of the Criminal Code for a terrorist purpose, one count each of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, contrary to Section 88 of the Criminal Code, again, for a terrorist purpose, those weapons being an axe and a machete. In addition, Ahmed El Didi faces one additional charge for aggravated assault, contrary to Section 268 of the Criminal Code. I want to emphasize there is no evidence to suggest that there is any remaining risk to the public. I would also like to say that I'm very proud of the impressive team effort that went into this investigation. The success would not have been possible without the work done by all involved civilian and sworn members and a collective effort from our partner agencies that I've mentioned earlier and that are here before you. I would also like to thank the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS. They also assisted with this investigation, as always, and I want to thank them for their assistance. Along with our law enforcement partners, the RCMP remains committed to combating violent extremism both in Canada and abroad. Thank you for everyone coming here today. I'll be now reading this statement in French, after which I will turn it over to our moderator to lead us through the Q&A portion. Bonjour à tous, je suis le commissaire adjoint Matt Peggs, commandant régional de la région du centre de la GRC. Both in Canada and abroad. Thank you for everyone coming here today. I'll be now reading this statement in French, after which I will turn it over to our moderator to lead us through the Q&A portion. Bonjour à tous, je suis le commissaire adjoint Matt Peggs.
I'm Assistant Commissioner Peggs of the Central Region of the RCMP, and I'd like to welcome everyone to each of you and thank you for joining us today. My duty today is to give you information on the terrorist attempt that was stopped by CSIS of the Greater Toronto Region. Toronto CSIS is made up of members of the RCMP, of the Prosecutor Office of Ontario, the OPP, the Toronto Police, Border Services of Canada, and Regional Peel and Durham Police. CSIS surveils threats to the nation, including criminal and terrorist and extremist actions, an inquest to the biggest threats to Canada. July 28th, the Greater Toronto arrested a man of Richmond Hill who was in the final planning steps of an attempt in Toronto. We were made aware of this situation in July.
publication est en vigueur afin
The non-publication order is in effect to protect this ongoing
quelques détails
investigation, but I can give you a few details today.
avec l'autorisation du procureur général du Canada.
With the authorization of the Canadian prosecutor,
Accusés de plusieurs infractions de terrorisme.
these men have been charged with many terrorism
Présumées activités terroristes de
crimes.
Ahmed El-Didi,
Ahmed El-Didi,
62 ans,
age 62,
Mustafa El-Didi,
and Mustafa El-Didi,
26 ans,
age
ont donné lieu
26,
au chef d'accusation suivant.
have been charged with the following:
Participation aux activités d'une
participating in a terrorist group
ou Daesh en contravention à l'article
against Article
83
83
Code criminel.
of the Canadian Criminal Code,
Facilitation d'une activité terroriste.
facilitating terrorist acts against Article 83-19 of the CCC,
Commettre un meurtre en contravention à
planning to commit a murder
460
against Article 465 of the CCC,
chacune des individus pour possession d'une arme d'une
and
dangereuse.
both are charged with possession of a dangerous weapon against the Article 88.
Une hache et une machette.
These were an axe and a machete.
Plus, Ahmed El-Didi.
In addition, Ahmed El-Didi
fait grave.
also
De
has
l'article 260
another
du Code
charge
criminel.
under Article 260 of the Criminal
Tiens à
Code.
souligner
I want
qu'il semble
to
indiquer que le risque pesant sur la sécurité publique.
let you know that there is no further danger to the
Je
public.
tiens également à dire combien de
I also
fier de la passionnant travail de
want to say I'm proud of the impressive work of the team that led to these arrests.
Cette issue n'aurait pas été possible sans
This would not have been possible without the hard work of all civilian and police staff of the various departments
organismes partenaires.
and partner organizations.
Finalement, le service
Finally,
canadien du renseignement de sécurité, ou
CSIS,
a également participé à
has also taken part in the investigation. I want to thank the members of that center for their contribution with the support of their partners in law enforcement. RCMP is resolute in fighting extremism in Canada and elsewhere in the world. Thank you to all for being here today.
Please ask only one question with one follow-up if needed. Welcome to ask your question in English or French. We will have time for plenty of questions, so can I take the first one?
Peter Edwards, Toronto Star. What can you tell us about the targets for the attack?
Sure, thank you for your question. I will defer to James Pryor.
Sorry. So with respect to your question, No, thank you for the question. With respect to the individuals at this time, we're treating this as a threat to the City of Toronto as far as particular groups or part of the population at this time. That is part of the publication ban. As Assistant Commissioner Peggs had mentioned, there is a publication ban in effect, and so this is part of the ongoing investigation, and I would not want to comment on that right now, but there is no ongoing threat to citizens in the City of Toronto. We're still trying to establish exactly who were the intended targets of this attack.
Can you tell us if it was elected officials or members of the general public?
Again, I don't want to continue to reference the publication ban because I know everyone's aware of that. But in this particular case, it would be considered the general population.
Sean O'Shea with Global News. You mentioned a machete and an axe. Are those the only weapons we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe what hotel was targeted here, or where you found them, which hotel in Richmond Hill?
So I wouldn't want to identify the hotel for obviously. I don't want to affect someone's commercial standing. The hotel itself is not. I don't think is part of. It was certainly not part of the attack, and it was simply a place where they attended.
They were renting rooms there.
In this particular case, there was a room. Yes.
John Woodward from CTV. What details about this attack outside Canada and how that's connected to what happened allegedly here?
Certainly, and unfortunately, that is a part of the emerging investigation. One of the individuals, as previously mentioned, is accused of an attack outside Canada, and that's going to take some time in order to get all the particular details. But we have enough, obviously, to charge this individual with that offense.
Was the attack in service of an ISIS operation in a conflict?
Unfortunately, I would not like to comment on that this time.
Hi, James Cashin with the CBC. According to the court documents, the aggravated assault charge against Mr. Adidi took place in 2015 in service of ISIS, as the court documents say. Was he on your radar at all before the beginning of July?
No, sir.
My second question, are either of these two Canadian citizens? Are they both Canadian citizens?
As far as I know, they are.
Obviously, this happened the course of this investigation unfolded very quickly. There began at the beginning of July, and the arrests were made 4 weeks later. Can you walk us through how the investigation played out and how this all happened so quickly?
So I'll do the best that I can to address your question. You are correct in that this was a very fast-moving, and the investigation came to our radar and emerged in a very quick fashion. So as far as what we did investigationally, I'll refrain from commenting on techniques or how we proceeded with this, but the information that was presented to us was sufficient to obviously launch an investigation, and it led to enough evidence to result in charges against these two individuals. And
was there ever, in the course of your investigation, a video uncovered that was made by this father and son?
any sort of video or particular evidence would be part of that investigational holding, which I won't comment on at this time.
Is that covered by the publication?
Anything to do with the investigation and leading to these charges right now is part of the publication ban, except for what's in the information that's obviously part of the public record.
Father and son, were they residents of the city of Toronto? Are there multiple different locations where maybe evidence has been seized as part of the investigation at this point?
Certainly. So as part of the information, yes, they are residents of the Toronto region.
And are there multiple addresses or locations that they were using maybe to plan this attack? I mean, you mentioned the hotel in Richmond Hill. Were there other locations like this where they previously in the last month was in a room or gathered to plan this attack?
Certainly. Not that I'm aware of.
Nolan Crenshaw from 680 News. So is it just the father and son that are investigating here in Canada, or with the ongoing investigation, is there a possibility there are more people connected to this?
Mm-hmm. So again, and I know it sounds a bit of a redundant thing, at this time, these are the two individuals that are being charged with offenses. We don't believe that there's a great threat to the city of Toronto or surrounding region. And so if the investigations goes in such a direction that other people come to our attention, well, certainly that investigation will go and we'll try to see what's going on there. But at this time, it's simply these two individuals.
I know I'm reluctant to get specifics, but was part of this investigation or part of your awareness is because of things that were posted online, shared online, that kind of thing?
So the RCMP receives information in a variety of ways, and that could be through the form of tipsters. It can come through other governmental agencies and partners. Once again, the way that this unfolded, I will curtail my comments at this time, but it wasn't as a result of social media, for example. As we discussed a little bit earlier, we were not really aware of these individuals prior to the emergence of this file.
You mentioned they're Canadian citizens. Are they citizens of any other country?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that they're Canadian citizens at this point, but I'm not aware of dual citizenship or anything of that nature.
Are American authorities engaged in this investigation as well?
No, ma'am.
Joseph, is there anything you can say as far as perhaps why they are in Richmond Hill in particular as opposed to any other place in the Toronto area?
Mm-hmm. I don't have any information or reason why they selected that particular hotel or Richmond Hill.
operatives elsewhere around the world to carry out and plan this attack?
That would fall under the category of investigative holdings, but for what it's worth, I'm not aware. I can't confirm any of that they were supported like that.
You hear people getting radicalized by online videos and communications. Is that a factor here?
I couldn't comment on that, and the main reason being is that the investigation is ongoing, and perhaps in the future we will have evidence to suggest that it was a factor, but at this time, I would say not.
How were you able to link the father to something that happened in Iraq nearly 10 years ago? What piece of evidence, how are you able to link him to something that happened there so long ago?
Mm-hmm. Well, naturally, I won't comment on how we learned, but I'll take this opportunity to, again, congratulate and express my gratitude to the regular members, civilian members, and public service employees that work within GTA Inset as far as working together and actually putting all the pieces together to result in that particular charge. But as far as specifics, I'll refrain from divulging further.
In terms of members of the city of Toronto, communities within the city of Toronto that may have been threatened, have you liaised with leaders of those communities to kind of bring them into the tent of what kind of threat that community was facing?
So we're in communication with our policing partners, as you can see from the dais today. Inset itself, again, is an independent body. We're not liaising with politicians or members of parliament in that regard. So
maybe Toronto police could weigh in on this. I mean, in terms of specific communities within the city or a community that may have been the target here, have you liaised with leaders in that community?
We have not liaised with the leaders of that community. However, that doesn't mean that that's not going to take place. As the investigation unfolds and we learn more, there may be opportunities to engage our communities.
So, Superintendent, can you talk about the role of Toronto Police in this investigation specifically?
Well, the Toronto Police has members embedded in the INSET, the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, being an inspector purchase. So we work with our partners at INSET and with the other law enforcement agencies, but terrorism charges are the purview of the federal agency.
Superintendent, did the father and son live together? Did they cohabitate?
Yes, sir.
They were, and go ahead, sir.
Yes, sorry. Why was Toronto targeted? Is it simply because they live here and just geographically in the spot?
Part of the information that we have within that investigation suggests that Toronto would have been a target.
Are there other family members who reside in that home with the father and son? And if there are they cooperating with the investigation?
So obviously with a press conference of this nature, we'd like to focus on the two individuals who were charged, and out of respect for privacy for other family members, I would not like to comment on who else they might be residing with or who might be living in the neighborhood, etc.
You talk about a member of general population in Toronto. Is there a religious group that was targeted by these individuals? I mean, obviously tensions are quite high in the city itself between members of different religious faiths.
Yeah, naturally it's a very tense time, and we're all aware of that. We are still trying to establish completely who those targets might be. So,
which agency carried out the arrests?
So the RCMP carried out the arrest, and we had assistance from the York Regional Police as far as processing our procedures.
Question, just in terms of just understanding language and level of progression, when you say advanced stages of a violent attack, was this something that the INSET and the RCMP felt was going to happen tomorrow, or when you use the word advanced, can you just give it some context?
Yeah, I certainly can. How I'll frame my answer is like this. As you know, they were charged with having particular weapons. In other words, we're pretty confident how close they were to moving from simply having those tools and then moving on to actioning that threat. And so I couldn't tell you 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. But once again, what I'll say is because of the swift nature of all of law enforcement, our partner agencies on this, we were able to halt that threat. But we believe it was not only like, I don't want to say imminent as, again, it's within an hour or two, but it was close.
And was Toronto the only target?
From what we have, we knew that there was a threat potentially to Toronto, and we're not aware of other threats within the GTA.
But so your investigation doesn't indicate anything to do with firearms, explosives, none of that kind of stuff?
No, sir.
A question for Superintendent from Richmond. Please, can you speak more to your force's role in this and that processing information?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. York Regional Police is one of the partner agencies.
We have been listening in as RCMP and partners talking about a father and son arrested and accused of attempting to plan for some sort of terrorist activity allegedly involving ISIS or Daesh, as they are also known. We will bring you the details once again throughout the morning. We have our Beatrice Vaisman on scene in Newmarket as the RCMP continues to go through what is happening here and what was averted. The important thing police are saying, no threat to the public.